Education is preparation for reparation, yeah? Nabasier says so.
Now, I'm very, very pleased to have our next speaker, who is an actor, playwright, director, broadcaster, and the artistic director of the Old Vic. But perhaps most importantly, somebody who, when we hit a huge snag with this conference, and I assumed that I would just have to not go ahead, gave some very, very encouraging words without knowing it, and that is Kwame Kwei. Kwame.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Belle, for standing on the shoulders of your ancestors, in particularly Bernie. Understanding how the mechanisms, how we use the tools to dismantle the house is phenomenally important in this time, though we don't always have to use the tools or the master's tools to form our home. And so I thank you for creating this conference today. I'd also like to thank the speakers who've gone before me and my brother Onikechi. We've known each other for a very long time. And brother, you're still looking young. I want some of that juice. Send it this way, please. But most importantly, actually, it's about, the reason I'm thanking you is because I loved your multiple R's. Recognition, repair, remembrance, restitution, return, reconnection, reconstruction, and renaissance. And I found that very empowering, actually. And part of the reason, I'm going to move quite quickly because I know time is important and there's a lot of people to speak, so I won't really speak that long, but the reason why I accepted the invitation is because I perceive myself as a direct beneficiary of enslavement, of our ancestors, of those who've been enslaved. I'm a direct beneficiary. And why do I say such a thing? Well, I say such a thing is because my parents came from the Caribbean island of Grenada, and they left 4,000 miles to come here to the first world, to give me a first world education, or access to the things that the first world, as they call it, had created off the backs of our ancestors. This was built off the Industrial Revolution and the capital that came from the Industrial Revolution, and that capital went on to build the institutions that we now sit in or are oppressed by or negotiate with for our very survival. And so why do I say I'm a direct beneficiary of it? Because I stand and live here and walk on the soil that they built. So once I've taken that into consideration, what is my specific, and I think you framed it this way, my brother, as well. What is my specific area of work? What is my specific duty within that work? Well, that is to remember, to salute, to correct, and to inspire. To the tool that I have been given. That is the tool of the arts. We think that we are ruled by the military. We think that we are ruled by finance. But actually the thing that really rules us, that really controls us, is narrative. Narrative creation. I was born at a time when we were perceived, and though I would argue still now, that we are perceived, we of the African diaspora, in particular, were perceived as inferiors, intellectual inferiors, morals inferiors. And that subconscious inferiority was bred into our minds and placed into our system. And the system around us supported it in everything that we do. Our relationship with the authorities, our relationship with education, our relationship with art, our relationship, that subconscious inferiority bred into us from the moment we touched down in the West. The reason why reparation is important to me is because, and I've written plays about it. I play at the National Theatre many years ago, which I think actually my sister, you helped me do some research on, called Statement of Regret, which was about reparations. It was very interesting that I'd written a play before that called Elmina's Kitchen, which was set in quote-unquote the working class environment, and it got rave reviews. When I set my second play, which was set actually in a black bookshop, the Organic Intellectuals, looking at that, it got good reviews. When I set Statement of Regret in a black think tank, talking about reparation and how we repair, my friend, it got slaughtered. And I never had a play on at the National Theatre again. There is a direct correlation in my humble opinion, to all of those things. So let me talk about subconscious inferiority. You know, I was doing a play, actually Fix Up, with an actor called Delroy Lindo, and we were in rehearsal. And Delroy made a joke, and he did this. He goes, "Boy, Quams, looks like," and now for people of my generation, we know what that meant. That meant that, of course, that some of our parents, having been subjected to the barbarity of having to receive European notions of beauty as beauty, felt that if we had noses that were not alkaline, that in fact that it was ugly. And so actually we knew that reputationally people would pinch their babies, the bridge of their baby's nose, in order to make it feel straighter and look more European. And when Delroy did that, I started laughing, going, "Bro," and Del was slightly older than me. I went, "Bro, you know that it happened in your day, it happened in my day." But what was important was a much younger actor at that time, Javon Prince, said, "What are you talking about? I know that too." Javon was 15, 20 years younger, had experienced, culturally, family members who would pinch the nose so that we could look more European. That is subconscious inferiority, my brothers and sisters. That is placed almost within our DNA. So we grew up feeling ugly. So that we grew up feeling that we were not worthy of beauty and not worthy of love. My friends, we talk about military power, we talk about economic power, but the biggest power, I say again, is the power around narrative that shapes who you are, that gives you power or it takes your power away. It gives you strength or it makes you weak. It allows our children to define themselves as heroes and sheroes or define themselves as criminals.
I say.
And which, my friends, do we wish? We're living in revolutionary times. And so part of the reason, again, I say that I accepted this invitation and I said thank you for it and I'm overjoyed that it is happening, is because most importantly for me, and again, this may sound controversial, we have many arguments against reparations. And, you know, some of them say, you know, the Africans, we all know that the African is a European name anyway for Kemet, Kem, for all of those, but the Africans enslaved themselves. And I'm going to go, yo, if you want that, keep that. And I'm going to go, you know what? Between 2 and 26 million, and I'm certainly not at the 2, and you just have to read Edward Long, the 17th century historian, to understand the real numbers that was happening. But if we regretfully say, do you know what? Those who died in the Middle Passage, I'm going to let you off that too. Here's what I can't. And here's what does need reparative justice. It is the seasoning period when we landed on the soil and they took away our names and our gods and our culture. And no slave system that we understand thus far has ever had that deculturalization process embedded in the process of our enslavement. So our enslavement was not just physical, it was not just culture, it was spiritual, because you took me away from everything. Who then must I look up to? Who then must I emulate? Who then must I kill myself in order to elevate you? And so when we talk about reparative justice, when we talk about reparations, my thing comes back to no one did this to anybody else. And so you have communities walking blinded. You talk about not having Black History Month because we had it for 20 years, when for 400 you hid mine. What is the problem with me now looking? In fact, I'm now happy us to move away from Black History Month and move to Black Achievement Month, so that actually I can look at what we're achieving and what has been stood in the way of not allowing us to achieve. Let's KPI that. Not to use capitalistic business terms while we sit here. So I'm going to end by saying I deeply appreciate, my brother, your R's. And I'm going to try and augment your R's with some W's. And I did say augment, not to replace. And in drama, it always comes down to actually these things. In every film that you see, in every narrative that you partake in, it is the why. Central question, why do we deserve it? Well, I think I've just made my case.
Thank you.
Subconscious inferiority that was placed into the body of our system, that is played out over and over and over again. Where is the money going to? If we don't answer that question, no one's coming with us. And who's going to get it? If we don't answer that question, no one's coming with us. When's it going to come? Reasons why we set up, or why you have set up wonderful forums in this way. And most importantly for me, what difference is it going to make? Well, that's what we have to make an argument for. How will any form of reparation not just pay back, because they can argue you didn't do it, or they didn't do it, their ancestors did. But what difference is it going to make to me today, carrying the wounds of deculturalization? I think these are central questions that I ask. And I would end by saying, this movement is a 21st century movement. It is not old school. It is right now. And we have to make it feel progressive. We have to make it feel exciting. We have to make it feel revolutionary. We have to make sure that the young think that this is something that they can opt into, not that they are dragged into. In the arts right now, it's really hard to actually get black artists to want to dedicate their craft to stories that are about race. And I understand it, because they're like, that's all they've ever let us do. Now we can be in Marvel films, so I don't want to go back and talk about enslavement. While we run the risk of forgetting, and we run the risk of others taking that place. I don't know about you, but I'm seeing a lot of white comedians do Nigerian accents on YouTube. I'm seeing lots of them doing Yardi accents, taking spaces that used to be ours. I say it's up to us to make sure it is fashionable, hot, young, contemporary, revolutionary. And if we don't deserve the things we're asking for. Thank you.
Education is preparation for reparation, yeah? Nabasir says so.